One of the main activities of the project research part was that of creating some tools for data collection and to spread methodologies among the anti-violence centers that were part of the partnership of the WIBO project. We started with investigating their needs and the way in which they were collecting data within their centers, and then we designed common tools. This was a real important element of the project because allowed both to increase capacity at the center for data collection that is not in usual practice within anti-violence centers, and as well allow to obtain very interesting and I would say not so very well widespread in other parts of Europe data and information on economic financial aspects related to women survivors of violence and in particular of IPV. Indeed, the data allowed to understand better the financial situation, the economic independence of women that are in charge of the anti-violence centers, and from this to formulate different policy strategies or to better understand from the anti-violence center perspective the needs of better networking with local actors to support women to find an economic independence pathway and empowerment. Of course, the sample that we use for the data collection, even if it's not a statistical representative sample, is quite big. It's more than 500 women, 552 women to be exact, and they really represented a sample that is representative of the way the countries that were part of the project were dealing with these women. The results coming out from the analysis of the data are quite interesting because they shed light on to different aspects that are not always so much explored. One is that economic independence is usually related to, in the point of view, to women that are thought to be maybe more weak, or with less possibilities of having an employed or having a low level of education. Instead, the sample showed, as is also acknowledged, that violence is a very transversal issue that tackle different women from every single employment status, class and educational level. So even if there are a sample of women that in theory have the potentiality to get to arrive to an economic independence, these indicators, so the employment or the level of education, should be really treated in a very careful way, because on themselves alone are not predictive of risk or an element that by themselves only can allow to say that they are independent. Indeed, also these women that even if with an employment or even if with a medium high level of education were not economic independent, we created an index crossing different indicators that allow to understand that also in many cases in which they have a salary, they have their own money from the job they do, they are not able, for example, to freely use this money, to have a decision of the way in which this money can be spent, or decision on the total amount of the household also earning, and so on. So this is indeed another complication. Another interesting issue is related to the fact that they have also a quite different perception from the reality. And so this is also a complication because economic independence or economic support for the empowerment of women are not so well conceptualized at the research level, but also by the women themselves, that they in some cases not even know or understand the way in which economic abuse are coming together with other forms of violence.